In this lesson, you will learn how to solve equations using the distributive property. For each of the examples in this lesson, we will follow these 4 steps. Step 1, we use the distributive property to remove the parentheses. Step 2, combine like terms. Step 3, solve the equation by isolating the variable. And for step 4, we will check each answer by substituting the solution into the original equation. So the directions for each of these examples is to solve the equation and then check the solution. So for number 1, we have 2 times m minus 8 equals 14. The variable that we want to solve for is m. So let's start with step 1. Step 1 says to use the distributive property to remove the parentheses. That means to take the number in front of the parentheses, which is 2, and multiply it by each term inside. So that we have 2m minus 16 equals 14. Now for combined like terms, you look to see if you have any like terms on either side of the equation, which in this case you don't. 2m and negative 16 are different terms because the 2 has an m next to it and the negative 16 does not. Therefore, there are no like terms to combine in this example. For step 3, solve the equation by isolating the variable. The variable that we want to solve for is m. The 2 is being multiplied and the 16 is being subtracted. We always use addition and subtraction first when solving for a variable by taking the opposite sign. So we add 16 to both sides. And we have 2m, the 16's cancel, 14 plus 16 is 30. And to finish step 3, solve the equation by isolating the variable. We have a 2 in front of the m that's being multiplied. Opposite of multiplication is division, so I divide both sides by 2, and I'm left with m equals 15. So to finish this, I have to check my answer of m equals 15. So I write the original equation, and I substitute 15 in for m. So first, I simplify what's inside parentheses. 15 minus 8 is 7, and 2 times 7 is 14. So since both sides equal 14, my answer of m equals 15 is correct. For number 2, I have 45 equals negative 3 times 2m minus 7. So starting with step 1, I use the distributive property by multiplying negative 3 by each term inside the parentheses. So that I have 45 equals negative 3 times 2m is negative 6m, and negative 3 times negative 7 is positive 21, so therefore I write that as plus 21. Next, I check for like terms, which once again I do not have any like terms on either side of the equation. So I want to solve for my variable, which is the m. The negative 6 is being multiplied by m, and the 21 is being added. So addition and subtraction is used first. The opposite operation to addition is subtraction. So I subtract 21 from both the left and right sides. 45 minus 21 is 24. It's equal to negative 6m. My 21's cancel. And I'm left with 24 equals negative 6m. Since the negative 6 is being multiplied by m, I use the opposite operation, which is division. 24 divided by -6 is -4. My -6's cancel, and I'm left with just m. So you can also write this answer as m equals -4. So I check this on the right side of the screen, and I write my original equation. 45 equals -3 times 2m minus 7. And -4 gets substituted in for m. So I rewrite this equation, and I'm going to use brackets and put the -4 in parentheses. So that we have 45 equals -3. So inside the brackets, first we multiply 2 times -4, which is -8. And since we are subtracting sign numbers, we have to follow keep, change, change. So we keep the sign of the 8 as negative, change the subtraction sign to addition, and change the addition sign of the 7 to a negative, so that we're actually adding -8 plus -7. -8 plus -7 is -15. And I rewrite the equation so that 45 equals -3 times -15 is +45. Since both sides are the same, my answer of m equals -4 is correct. So for number 3, I have 3 times x minus 4 inside parentheses. Outside parentheses I have -2 or -2 equals -11. So starting with step 1, the 3 gets multiplied by both terms inside the parentheses. So that I have 3 times x is 3x, and then 3 times -4 is -12. The -2 stays the same, equals -11. So in this example, step 2 applies. Step 2 says to combine like terms. On the left side of the equation, we have a -12 minus 2. So these terms can be combined. So let's work that out on the side. -12 minus 2. Since we're subtracting sign numbers, we want to follow keep, change, change. So we keep the sign of the 12 as negative, we change the subtraction sign to addition, and we change the addition sign of the 2 to a minus sign, so that we're actually adding -12 plus -2. -12 plus -2 is -14. So I rewrite my equation as 3x minus 14 equals -11. So I want to solve for my variable x. So my first step in solving for my variable x is to move the 14 over to the right because it's being subtracted. I take the opposite operation, which is addition. I have 3x My 14's cancel, and it's equal to negative 11 plus 14. We subtract the numbers, take the sign of the bigger, so it's equal to 3. The 3 is in front of the x, which is being multiplied. The opposite of multiplication is division. My 3's cancel, and x equals 1. So on the right side of the screen, I want to check x equals 1. So I write my original equation. And I substitute 1 in for x. So inside the parentheses, 1 minus 4. Since I'm taking a bigger number from a smaller number, 1 minus 4 is negative 3. And then I have minus 2 equals negative 11. First I multiply. 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. Minus 2 equals negative 11. I'm subtracting sign numbers, so I want to follow keep, change, change. So I keep the sign of the 9 as negative, change the minus sign to an addition sign, and make the 2 negative. So I'm actually adding negative 9 plus negative 2, which is negative 11. So I have negative 11 equals negative 11, and so my answer is x equals 1. For number 4, I have negative 2 equals 8 times 5 minus x, and then plus 5x. So I use the distributive property and multiply the 8 by what's inside the parentheses. And 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times negative 1x is minus 8x, and then plus 5x. So once again, I have like terms here. On the right side of the equal sign, I have a negative 8x plus 5x. Since I'm adding sign numbers, I subtract 8 and 5, which is 3, but I take the sign of the bigger number, which is 8, so they combine to negative 3x. So I rewrite the equation, but substituting negative 3x. To solve for the variable, I have a negative 3 in front that's being multiplied, and since there's a plus sign to the left of the 40, even though we don't see it, we know it's there, the 40 is being added. So I move the 40 first by subtracting, taking the opposite sign, and I have negative 2 minus 40. So let's work that out on the side. Negative 2 minus 40. I have to follow keep, change, change. So I keep the sign of the 2 as negative, change the operation to addition, and change the 40 to a negative number. So I'm actually adding negative 2 plus negative 40. Which is negative 42. So I have negative 42, my 40's cancel, and it's equal to negative 3x. So my last step in solving for the variable, I divide both sides by the number in front, which is negative 3. Negative 42 divided by negative 3 is a positive 14. My negatives 3 cancel, so positive 14 equals x, or I can write this as x equals 14. So on the right, I check my answer of x equals 14. I write my original equation. And then I substitute 14 in for x. In this case, I have two places to substitute it in for. So 5 minus 14 is negative 9. So I have negative 2 equals, now I multiply, 8 times negative 9 is negative 72, plus 5 times 14 is 70. So if I take negative 72 plus 70, I'm adding sign numbers, so I subtract and take the sign of the bigger number. 72 minus 70 is 2. Since the 72 is bigger, it's negative 2. Since both sides equal negative 2, my answer of x equals 14 is correct. For number 5, I have 1.2m minus 0.6 times m minus 2 equals 2.4. Before I distribute the number in front of parentheses, I want to get rid of the decimal first. So if you notice, every number has one digit to the right of the decimal. So I'm going to move this over once, move this over once, not touching anything inside the parentheses, and move the decimal in the 2.4 over once. So I'm going to rewrite this equation as 12m minus 6 times m minus 2 equals 24. As long as you move each term over the same amount of places, your equation will be balanced. And now you can proceed with step 1, which is to use the distributive property. So I will multiply a negative 6 by each term inside. So negative 6 times m is negative 6m. Negative 6 times negative 2 is positive 12. So I add 12. So after the distributive property, I combine like terms. So 12m minus 6m is 6m. So I have 6m plus 12 equals 24. M is the variable I want to solve for. Since the 6 is in front, that's being multiplied, and the 12 is being added, I move the 12 over first by subtracting. So that I have 6m, my 12's cancel, is equal to 12. And the last step in solving for m, I divide both sides by 6, since the m is being multiplied. My 6's cancel, and I have m equals 2. So on the right side of the screen, I want to check my answer of m equals 2. So I write my original equation. And once again, when I substitute 2 in for m, I have two places that I have to substitute. So I have 1.2 times 2 minus 0.6, and then 2 minus 2 equals 2.4. So in the check, I have 1.2 times 2, and then I have a negative 0.6 times parentheses, 2 minus 2. So if I combine the parentheses first, 2 minus 2 is 0. So I'll rewrite the check as 1.2 times 2 minus 0.6 times 0 and now if I multiply each part of the left side, 1.2 times 2. So on the side I have 1.2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. 1 times 2 is 2. When you multiply decimals, you do not have to line up the decimals. After the multiplication, you count the digits to the right of the decimal, which is only 1. So you move your decimal point over once, so your answer is 2.4. I have 2.4, and then anything times 0 is 0, so negative 0.6 times 0 is just 0. So 2.4 equals 2.4. My answers match. So the solution is m equals 2.